Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion.
Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I'm looking at two unreleased second albums. First, the unreleased second album from the Scream called Taking It to the Next Level, and then Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses and his unreleased second solo album, Beautiful Disease. But first of all, the Scream. So the Scream, I guess, are most well known for their 1991 album, Let It Scream, which featured John Corabi, who, of course, ends up joining Motley Crue. So John Corabi on vocals. But what you might be surprised to know about is that there's actually a second album. And here it is. This is what it looks like. So released on Hollywood Records in 1993, but not actually released because it was only sent out as a promo release. So it was basically advertising a future release. It was going to be released on Hollywood Records. You know, it was one of those situations where it looks like the record company is kind of going out of business potentially. I mean, this is Hollywood Records. It's owned by Disney. So, you know, it's not exactly, not going to continue if they wanted to continue. But obviously it had some issues there at the time. And I guess that meant that they decided to not release it, and the label kind of wasn't really a happening thing there for a while. And so basically that album, that second album, is just sort of sitting there unreleased. There's promo copies out there. You can get it on Discogs for, I think it's, there's one on there now for $998. So, you know, you can get it, but you have to pay quite a bit of money for it. It's interesting that, you know, because like I say, you know, Hollywood Records was kind of, you know, struggling at the time. So this was supposed to come out around 93, but, you know, they could have at least at some point reissued it, but it never happened. And that was kind of it. Now, what's interesting, though, of course, you know, I'm talking about this being the second Scream album, and you're like, well, 1993, wasn't John Corabi and Motley Crue? Well, yeah, he was. So what actually ended up happening is that it's the same lineup that recorded the first album, but they've replaced John Corabi with a guy called Billy Fogarty. So Billy Fogarty comes in on vocals for that album. And it does sound quite a bit different, I think, to the first album, because I've listened to it, I've heard it. I'm not going to play any clips from it because you can access all the songs from the album if you go to the Racer X website. So if you go to Racer X website and then go to the Scream, you can see a whole lot of actually quite interesting information about the band and some early recordings. Now, you can't listen to any of the first album. That's interesting because there's a little note on there that says all MP3s removed per John Corabi's request. So at one point you could listen to the first album as well, but John Corabi has asked for those MP3s to be removed, which is interesting. But you can listen to the entire Taking It to the Next Level album. So there's MP3s on their website. You can listen to a live recording from 1990 when they were actually known as Saints and Sinners. So that's also kind of interesting. There's also a whole lot of unreleased songs as well that you can listen to. So I might put a link to that in the description so you can go and check that out. So you can listen to this unreleased second album, and you can also check out some of these early recordings and unreleased songs as well. So so that's on the Racer X website. Now, why Racer X? Well, because a number of the members in the Scream were originally in Racer X. So let's just quickly have a look at who was actually in the band. Now, of course, we know about John Corabi, and he goes off to join Motley Crue. He'd actually initially been in a hair metal band called Angora. And there's some recordings out there of him in that band. The guys from Racer X were Bruce Boulay, John Aldretti, although I think it might be him more correctly known as Juan Aldretti, And actually, they had initially Scott Travis from Judas Priest on drums. So again, though, that's that Racer X connection. So you've got three guys basically from Racer X there. And like I said, John Aldretti is what it says on the CD here. But I think he's actually known now as Juan Aldretti, Juan. Hopefully I'm saying that correct. And he's, he actually, I was having a look at what he's been doing. He's been pretty busy. He's played with Marilyn Manson, and he features on some Mars Volta albums as well. So he's actually been keeping himself pretty busy over the last few years. Bruce Burleigh actually did go on and form a band called Epidemic. And they put out an album in 2002, which I actually have and really like. Sort of more modern rock, but really good albums. Unfortunately, just the one release for that band. That was the lineup. Oh, and also, so Scott Travis on drums, and he's on the early sort of version. He's in the early version of the band, and he does even co-write one of the songs on this album. But he leaves, of course, to join Judas Priest. I guess it's a bit of the story of this band, isn't it? Like guys leaving to join bigger bands. So, yeah, Scott Travis leaves to join Judas Priest, and John Corabi leaves, of course, after their first album to join Motley Crue. And we know how that works out, didn't we? But but so what ends up happening is Walt Woodward comes in, or Walt Woodward the third. He comes in as the drummer. So, and he's the drummer on the first and on this second unreleased album. Sadly, Walt passed away in 2010 due to alcohol issues. But yeah, go check out the second unreleased album. To be honest with you, I don't like it as much as their first album, and I'm not the biggest fan of this album. To be honest with you, I like it. I especially like Outlaw. I think that's a really good song. But that's the thing, though. On the second album, there's nothing heavy like that on it. It's very much a sort of and it makes sense for the time. This is 1993, but they're sort of more the real bluesy rock kind of sound, kind of a bit like the Black Crowes. But nothing heavy at all. Really, just think blues rock, classic rock. Nothing heavy particularly. But yeah, and of course, there it is, unreleased. But the band itself do sort of carry on. So my understanding is, and you can see this if you look at the Racer X website, most of that lineup then go on to form the band DC-10. So most of the lineup, I think, that record that second unreleased album, then form a band called DC-10, and they put out an album called Coburn, and you can check that out on the Race X website as well. There's MP3s for that as well. So there we go. So if you didn't know it, now you do. There is an unreleased second album by The Scream. Finally, I'm going to look at and talk about Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses and his unreleased second solo album, Beautiful Disease. So, of course, this is a follow-up to his first solo album that was also it did come out on Geffen Records, and the second album was also supposed to come out on Geffen Records as well. Now, I think at about this time, I'm pretty sure he's actually left Guns N' Roses, and Guns N' Roses are, basically now just Axl, and Axl's trying to do his Chinese democracy thing. But so he's going off now to do what he's expecting to be his second solo album, and he records this in 1998. Supposedly just in his home studio, but he has, there's a Guns N' Roses connection here because, Slash and Izzy Stradlin guest on it, and he's also got Mike Borden as well on drums. And the album features actually a couple of songs that did feature on previous band's albums. So he's got a song from the band he did called from the band Neurotic Outsiders. So that's got a song called Seattle Head. So that was actually on Seattle Head was actually on the Neurotic Outsiders album, and also Mez, which was on the 10 Minute Warning albums. I think 10 Minute Warning was a band that Duff was in before he was actually in Guns N' Roses. So there's those two songs had previously been released on different albums, but they were going to be on his solo album. And it was actually going to be released supposedly, it was supposed to be released on February 5th, 1999, which is actually his birthday. And there was a promotional, campaign for the album. And again, just like the Scream album, there are promotional CDs, so promo CDs released for it. There's the whole album is on a promo CD, and also there's another promo which just has a few songs from the album on it. So you'd think when you're Duff McKagan and you've been in a big band like Guns N' Roses, you're on a big label, you'd think that this would get released. But Geffen was merged with A&M into Interscope. I don't know the full details exactly, but something like that. And there were a number of albums shelved, and Duff's album was one of them. So I actually read an interview which was done around the time, and it was even talked about then. There's this merger happening; it may not get released, and he was really upset about that possibly happening. But he said, "I'm still going to go out and tour it anyway." So he did. So he actually went out and still toured on an album that had not actually been released. He also thought that he might, do a live album to make up for the fact that this album was not going to be released. So episode 1999 Live, which he recorded under the name Loaded. And actually, Loaded, of course, is the band that he formed next after this solo career, which is basically just a continuation, I think, of his solo career, really. But it's more of a band, I guess. But so in Loaded actually features 3 of the songs that were going to be on Beautiful Disease. So you've got Seattle Head, Superman, and Then and Now. So they're actually on the debut album Dark Days that was put out by Loaded. And actually in 2023, supposedly McKagan's manager managed to acquire the rights and master tapes to Beautiful Disease. So it potentially could get released now, but I don't know if it will or not. I do know that there was a new mix of the song Hope, which was on Beautiful Disease, and that you can find that on McKagan's 2023 album Lighthouse. And that also includes the performances the performance by Slash on there. So remember that Slash did some work on this second unreleased album, and so now you can hear that on the 2023 album because he's included the song Hope. It's a new mix, but it's that song that was supposed to be on the second album. So that's on his 2023 album. But at this stage, there's no information about whether that album Beautiful Disease will ever get released. But if you look, you can find it online. Like I say, it's kind of interesting too because it does have, some contributions by Slash and also Izzy Stradlin. Izzy Stradlin also has a songwriting credit on the album as well. And if you like what he's sort of been doing, Duff McKagan has done, with his band Loaded and his solo albums, then it's worth checking out. All right, so that's it for today. Just two albums I've looked at today that from bands that you might have heard of, but you might not have realized that they have that they each have an unreleased second album. All right, if you like this type of content, make sure you hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you later. See ya.